difficult loss. And then the layers of the Game 6 last night and what a colossal disappointment that was as the Warriors get blown out and eliminated. The series as a whole, 4-2, the Lakers take it, and really at times it looked like the Lakers were the more dominant team, but the Warriors had chances to win the series, missed opportunities in Game 1 and Game 4, and then, of course, we got to get into a tumultuous season overall, and then big picture, where do the Warriors go from here? So all of those things are what we're going to dive deeply into, and there's just a lot to unpack between now and 1 o'clock here at 95.7 The Game. But we are here for it, and Whitey, I welcome you into the conversation here. Good to be with you, my man. Just kind of your general thoughts on all of that as we set the table.
You're right. We are here for you today. Therapy session, if that's what you need. You're right as far as the way the series went, and I know Steve Kerr alluded to it last night. Warriors had some opportunities. I don't know that they were capable of winning this series or going much beyond it, but they did have chances. Game 4 was the one that stood out to me, where the Warriors basically gave that game away. But ultimately, I found myself last night, sifting through the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts. And I have to be honest, there was a little bit of a sense of relief just in that this year has been so tumultuous and so frustrating and so difficult, primarily, of course, for the players and for the organization. But it just was a year where nothing quite fit together. And now at the very least, okay, I agree with Steve Kerr. This team went about as far as it was going to go. And the good news is there's no indication that anybody has any intention of breaking up this core. So now the focus, with all the emotion, the organization has to focus unemotionally on how do we get back to closer to where we want to be during this offseason. It's going to be a fascinating offseason. It was a strange season. Let me just say this real quick. There's a lot of talk about the dynasty. It's done. Oh, it's the end of the dynasty. JD, to me, some of this is semantics, but the dynasty ended in 2019. A dynasty is an extended, unbroken period where you're on top. The Warriors 2015, 2019, that was a dynasty. 3 of the last 4 seasons now have ended painfully. So, one of those years they won the championship. The good news is they're still planning to make another run next year. But this dynasty thing, it's the end of the dynasty. The dynasty already ended. The fact that the Warriors survived that, the loss of Durant, they're no longer a dominant team, but they're still a team that was in the final 8. That's encouraging going forward. But this, it's the end of the dynasty. I think some of that is a little overwrought. Miss me with that.
It's interesting because I actually have a different take on it, and it's not to me, we don't know if the dynasty is over. And I understand your definition, but I think a lot of people last night and we're kind of on this kick of, them losing last night means that it's over. Well, no, it means they're no longer the champions, and there's going to be a new champion this year. And my definition is, no, the dynasty, I think, can continue if they can get back to, maybe win. Like if they won another championship, let's say, and look, this is a reach to say today, considering
it's not out of the question.
Looks
and
everything.
Not out of the question.
But if they won another championship with Steph, Klay, and Draymond, let's say 2 years from now in 2025, I think you can go back at that point and say, hey, over this 11-year span, the Warriors won 5 championships, or if they somehow are able to bounce back and put a team together that can contend and win next year. Wow, they won 5 in 10 seasons. That's really, that's a dynasty.
Oh, that's great.
I think we do look at the Spurs, I think, going back through 99 to 14, which was a 15-year span where they won 5 titles, and it is viewed as a dynasty in many people's eyes. So there's always that, kind of movable definition of what everybody thinks a dynasty is, and it's subjective. I know you gave maybe more of a dictionary type definition of it, and
sure.
That's fair. But I didn't view last night just on that point as if, they lost, the dynasty's over, especially with the report that came out right as the game ended, and it was from Shams Charania and Anthony Slater, and there were a lot of different things in that report. And it basically coincided with the tone of the post-game press conferences over at Crypto.com Arena. And I'll just read to you, Whitey, and to the listener, just one of the first couple of paragraphs here. There's still internal belief that this established core, and again, this is from Shams and Anthony Slater, still internal belief this established aging core can compete for titles because Steph Curry remains a top 5 player in the NBA, and both Draymond Green and Klay Thompson aren't showing signs of steep decline. Green made an all-defensive team. Thompson, despite a brutal series against the Lakers, which obviously we'll have to get into here between now and one, he led the NBA in three-point makes. And so even though Curry's 35, and now I'm paraphrasing, there's a belief that they still think they can do it with that three, which I think was the tenor of the post-game press conferences, with Steve Kerr saying that those three specifically still have a lot to give. Draymond said he wants to be around. There's a financial component to that. We got to figure out what happens with Bob Myers. I mean, as far as the moving forward part, there really is a very cut and dry. It's, all right, what happens with Bob? Does what happened with Bob affect Steve? Does Draymond want to be in or out? If it's out, but it's out because he wants a longer-term deal, well, then they have to figure that out. And then you start to say, all right, well, how do you get better at that point? And, we can get into a lot of the different ways that the Warriors can get better. But I do think the one thing that the post-game tenor sounded like, and also if you just look at the way this series played out, there's a redefinition of who's part of the core, I think. And players that I think we thought were in the core may not be in the core anymore. Jordan Poole. And players who I think were firmly entrenched in the belief that they were going to be around and have an opportunity to develop here. Jonathan Kuminga may not be around for the long haul as this team looks to double down on Steph, Klay, and Draymond.
The fact that the organization seems to be saying with this report that we're committed to competing again next year, maybe that's not a big surprise, but it's great news from a fan's perspective, because there is that concern with the growing tax bill. At some point, are they going to have to pull the plug on this? But so that's great, the realization, and I agree with it. We've talked about it. When you have three guys who are formed a championship core, led by one of the greats of all time, frankly, Steph Curry, you don't replace that. It's like you might as well get the most out of it, squeeze every drop out of that while you have it. Because we've seen teams in the past where they thought, oh, we'll find somebody else. Like, no, it's really, really hard, if not impossible. So that's the right decision. Obviously, at this point, the plan was for the core to include some of those guys. The plan was, we all know, and not to just belabor this, but you can't ignore it. James Wiseman at this point was supposed to be part of the core. With the second pick, they squandered that opportunity with the second pick, and maybe with the seventh pick. That one's difficult to say, more difficult to say, because Kuminga had in some ways a really good year, but in the playoffs you couldn't put him on the floor. And now you got part of that report saying that Kuminga's representatives want to meet with the Warriors. What's his future? To me, if you're looking at upgrading, it starts with, Poole, Kuminga, I will trade them if I can get something back that I really like. I'm not at all reluctant to trade them if I can get something back that I like. I'm not in any way thinking, oh, those guys, they're my future. I don't look at it that way anymore. I'm not sure I ever did. But going forward, that appears to be, you have difficult choices, limited choices. That appears to be one of your few roads to improving if you can get something of value for one or both of those guys as part of a package.
And I'll read the paragraph as it pertains to Kuminga, and I do not want to make the next 3 hours about Jonathan Kuminga. And,
right.
I know there's a good chunk of Warrior fans that love him and think he's going to be a superstar. I think there's another percentage of Warrior fans that think, he still needs some development and has a ways to go. I don't want to make this show, I love Kuminga. I hate Kuminga. I love Kuminga. I don't want to do that, but I will say, just in reading the part of this story from The Athletic, the Warriors and Kuminga's representatives, basically Kuminga said he wanted to be traded if he's not guaranteed a role next year. And I will read it specifically. Kuminga, the Warriors and Kuminga's representatives are expected to discuss his future this offseason. League sources say Golden State will need to decide whether Kuminga will receive a full-time role moving forward, and if not, league sources say the number 7 pick in the 2021 NBA draft will want to be somewhere he can play more. So he basically is saying, if I'm not going to be in the rotation, I want to be traded. That I think is the blunt way to put it. And wow, who the hell does he think he is?
Yeah.
But I'll leave it at that, because again, I don't, at the risk of turning the show into that, hey, I love Kuminga, trade Kuminga, I love Kuminga, trade Kuminga. I don't want that to be the show today. But
there's no ignoring it. It's a huge part of this whole picture going forward.
No question. So 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. It is John Dickinson and Whitey Gleason. It's Warriors This Week here on 95.7 The Game. In the aftermath of the Warriors season coming to an end, and again, just to kind of reset off the top, I know Warrior fans are highly emotional. Some are angry, some are sad, some are reflective and or appreciative of the run that the Warriors have had in reestablishing themselves at the top of the mountain, going back to winning the championship last year, and then the tumultuous season that began with the Draymond Green punch of Jordan Poole, and things just never got right early. There was this old-young disconnect seemingly in play all season long, where the veteran players didn't seem to trust the younger players. That made the younger players less playable. And then there were injuries along the way too, which increased roles for some. And there was also an inability for those who got increased roles based on some of the injuries and then playing well when they got those opportunities to kind of fit their game back in a box to where this team was whole. I know I've said this a couple of different times this year, Whitey. When the Warriors were whole, a lot of the players that played well and helped them stay afloat when, say, Steph Curry missed a month at 2 different points this season, just could not be as effective when this team was fully had its full complement of players. I mean, Jordan Poole's, I think, a prime example of that. Jordan Poole really helped the Warriors when Curry was out this year, and the Warriors had a winning record with Curry out. And, Kuminga got opportunities when Wiggins was out. They took Looney out of the starting lineup and put him in, played him. Dante DiVincenzo was starting at the 3 when Wiggins was out and played well. Those 3 players, though, when the team was whole, didn't fit. And that was a problem because on the one hand, you think, hey, these are pretty good players. But then on the other hand, they couldn't be effective at the level that they needed to be effective when the Warriors had Steph, Klay, Draymond, Wiggins, GP2 all available. And that, I think was part of the reason why this team never really got it rolling over the course of this season and never really could consistently find it in the playoffs either.
As far as last night goes, as soon as we got the report that Wiggins had injured his ribs, I thought, oh boy, if he's compromised at all, they're in big trouble. Anyone who's ever had anything with your ribs, you know how painful it can be. And, he played last night 28 minutes, but it was pretty clear he wasn't himself. So that really limited their chances to win last night. The fact that Wiggins, who was so good in the last game and is so important to them, the fact that he couldn't play at full strength, they were doomed, I think, as soon as that became apparent. In the series, of course, we all know this, but I was just looking again, JD, before we got started at the free throw numbers, and we all knew it was going to be this way. But my goodness, for this series, the Warriors were 60 of 80 from the foul line, and the Lakers were 126 of 160. So basically doubled them. Fouls was 139 for the Warriors, 97 for the Lakers. We knew it was going to be something like that, but man, that's a big hole to climb out of, which you hope you do with your three-point shooting, and they had limited success there. But as far as the series overall and how it pertains to, as you're saying, how good this team can be and why they were so limited this year, I think Tim Legler said it very well last night, right after the game on SportsCenter. He said the Warriors are small, their roster is thin, and he said their defense at times in that game and also during the year was feeble. And you put those things together, and again, I think Steve Kerr was right. That team got about as far as they were going to go. They were just too limited. And I know not to wander down this path, because you're right, fans are angry at Kerr. He should have done this, he should have done that. I think Steve Kerr did a really good job. I think the fact that the young players were not able to assume the larger roles, which was part of the blueprint, left this team in a position where they were small and they were thin and defensively they were feeble. And those are facts, and that's why they were so limited this year and their chances were so limited.
All right, he's Whitey Gleason. I'm John Dickinson, 888-957-9570. Let's go ahead and get to the phones, and we'll go ahead and start with Adam in San Jose. Adam in San Jose is going to get us tipped off here on a Saturday morning. Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Adam.
Good morning, guys. I want to start off by saying, similar to how we let go of the pool party notion for Jordan Poole, we really need to let go of the Game 6 Klay notion. It was a thing of the past. It no longer applies. It puts a lot of pressure on him, and he can't deliver that same performance he used to. And then I really want to talk about Klay Thompson. So I really hope Klay works on his mentals this offseason and eliminates the proving mindset. He played a very selfish style of basketball this season and refused to change, even when it clearly wasn't working. I think he needs to really diversify his game and understand that if his shot isn't there, he can impact the game in many other ways besides catching and shooting from beyond the arc. Kind of similar. I know him and Russell Westbrook are different players. They play different roles, but kind of like Russell Westbrook was on the Lakers. He's definitely nowhere near a max player anymore. And quite honestly, after this Lakers series, he should settle for the vet minimum.
Wow. And, I don't know about. Yeah, that's the last part was a little strong. The other stuff, it echoes things that I've said really all year. I mean, Klay played this season very angrily, and I think Adam laid it out as the proving mindset, and I think that's 100% on point. He was hell-bent, I think, early to prove to everybody that he was going to be the player that he used to be. He got off to the horrendous start, and then to the point where they had the team meeting after that ugly loss in Phoenix where Steph Curry scored 50 points and the Warriors still got beat and blown out in Phoenix. I covered that game in person, and there was the team meeting the next day, and reports were that basically Draymond in a way called out Klay for being selfish and hey, get back to just relax and being you and helping the team. And then Klay had a couple of months where he was really good. Some would say maybe statistically as good as he's ever been. I think if you watched it, you would know that wasn't really the case because there were still some high highs, but the lows are much lower for Klay when he does not play well, and we saw that at times in this series. And so you're just not getting a steady Klay Thompson, but the mindset to me, and I do think he has a Russell Westbrook type mindset in the refusal, and I think Adam's spot on, to acknowledge the fact that he isn't quite the same player or that he has to go about playing the game in a different manner. I think he acknowledged and everybody acknowledged that he's not going to be the same player he used to be. He like that we know that now. Like we don't have to keep beating everybody over the head with that. Klay's even acknowledged that himself. But to me, and I think Klay exemplified the whole Warriors team this season in that they played this whole year as if they didn't fully understand that they weren't quite good enough, it weren't quite as good as they used to be, and were still good enough to maybe contend for a title, but they had to go about it a little differently. They had to be a little more disciplined. They had to take better shots. They had to be less careless with the basketball than they've been able to get away with in recent years during this championship run. And they just had to be a little more buttoned up, maybe play a little slower, whatever it is. And there was this constant fight in the playoffs, both series, even the Sacramento series, where the Warriors would do the things that they always do, and it would start to get them burned, and then they would switch for a game or two, and then they would kind of fix it, and then as they would fix it, they would go right back to the team to being the team that they always been. It was like there was always this fight of how long do we really have to play this different way? And and the truth was you had to play that way the whole time, and that was your only chance to keep winning. Mm-hmm. And I think they at times it's they're just not good enough. I think the shooting of Steph and Klay in the Lakers series, especially Klay, because Steph still impacted the game in a million different ways, but the shooting for Klay was the indicator of like this team can't win playoff series anymore if Klay Thompson's going to be bad. Like they just weren't good enough. And if he's not hitting, you got to make an adjustment and keep it moving. I think that is now moving the offseason, Whitey. And I know I'm being long-winded about it, but it's just like he does have to come to grips with the fact, and I said this last night, he's not a max player right now. Like this whole report of him believing he's a max and he wants to get paid more than the 40+ he's going to make next year, like get that out of your head. Like and figure out what you need to do to be an impactful, effective player to help this team as the franchise, the organization triples down on your core to try and continue to compete.
He did play this year with a stubbornness that either, as you and Adam pointed out, that either wasn't there before or it just wasn't as evident because of the other guys he was playing with. I remember talking with Coach Kerr on the station about the fact that it appears after Durant left, Klay changed his game a little bit. It's as if he felt, all right, KD's gone. Now some of those shots are mine. I'm capable of doing that. That's how I can best help the team. And obviously it didn't go well this year. As far as his finances, as you said, $43 million next year. There's a chance that they could maybe agree to an extension this year, but you know that if they were going to agree to an extension with Klay, he would have to take less money. How willing would he be to do that? The good news is, they're in cap hell right now, but after this year, depending on how they work things out with Klay, his $43 million next year would come off the book. So it's possible, as I think Joan Hollinger pointed out in The Athletic, it's possible that you get through this coming season, the next year they might actually be under the cap. But that's the elephant in the room right now, I think, is Klay making $43 million when he's really not helping you anywhere close to what he used to.
888-957-9570. Let's keep it going on the phone lines here. Joe in San Francisco is next here on Warriors This Week. Hey, Joe.
Hey, guys. Happy Saturday. I'm grieving the loss of the Warriors and, grieving that you guys probably won't be on much longer for a while. But I just want to, this ironic, the thing is, when I saw the Lakers play the Timberwolves in the playoff games, I thought the Lakers are these bumbling fools that didn't belong in here, and I just find it ironic that the teams that bounced the Warriors. But they barely got by Minnesota. I've been watching this team since a little kid in the late 70s. I remember Rick Barry and the Warriors losing to the Phoenix Suns after they won the championship, and I couldn't comprehend how a championship team could lose. But when you're like 7 or 8, you just don't understand these types of things. This team is flawed. And I remember over the years thinking Lester Connor and Lorenzo Romar were going to be the great guys who turned the team around in the 80s, and Purvis Short, the whole thing. I just want to say I'm so appreciative of what this team has done for the area. We have been blessed by watching one of the most transcendent players in the history of all sport, and Tom Brady and Kobe and Magic. All these guys have lost championships and been bounced and things like that. So we have nothing to be ashamed of. And I want us to appreciate the greatness that is Steph. I just want to say, moving forward, I talked to you guys a couple weeks ago, and I said I think the two keys was going to be Klay and Poole. Klay couldn't play like a role player, great at home and on the road, but he seemed to even degrade past that. And I think that's the tough spot, because I just don't know if Kerr, and I just want to get your guys' opinion, was Kerr hoping for magic and, like that Klay would somehow, after missing 6 shots, would, get hot and click?
Oh, we lost Joe.
Yeah, we lost Joe there. I think, and we saw Steve Kerr do this, Whitey, in this series especially. The Warriors, just as the series went on, had fewer players that were trustable to be on the court. And I thought, even especially last night, and I didn't have a problem with it, he was just going to ride it out with Steph and Klay and Draymond for the most part. And DiVincenzo had a decent game last night for the Warriors. It just became, hey, empty it. Empty the clip and see what you got. And, yeah, they were hoping, because Klay can get just as hot as he was cold, seemingly in a blink. And you'd go with your best players. And even if you wanted to not go with your best players, there weren't other options, because the Warriors didn't have enough players that were playing well to even go away from somebody at that level. You got to have somebody to come in and take a guy's spot if you really want to sub him out, and the Warriors just weren't deep enough as the playoffs went on to be able to do that.
Yeah, by the way, Joe, thanks for the Purvis Short reference. I was at, it wasn't, Roracle yet, but the Coliseum Arena in '84 when he threw in 59 against the Nets, the great Purvis Short with that high-arching shot. I think the answer, if I understood it correctly, Joe, your question on why Steve Kerr stuck with Klay, in order for them to beat the Lakers, they needed Klay to be close to what he was in Game 2. That's what they needed. And nobody else could provide that. You could bring in someone who might play better in the short term than what you were getting from Klay, but you needed Klay to be Klay. And obviously, if you sat him down, he wasn't going to do that. So there's kind of a desperation to it. Reminds me, JD, going back to when Chris Webber was coming back from injury with the Kings, and it was 2005, and he wasn't very good, but they kept playing him. It's like, well, if we're going to win, we need him to be at his best. No one else can give us that. He may not, but we have to play him. And I think that bottom line is why Steve Kerr was sticking with Klay in hopes that he would become Game 2 Klay again.
All right, he's Whitey Gleason. I'm John Dickinson, 888-957-9570. We got a lot of calls to get to as Warriors this week. We're here until 1. We're talking about everything. The game last night, the series as a whole as the Warriors lose it to the Lakers this season, and where do the Dubs go from here? We'll continue the conversation next right here on 95.7 The Game.
Are you curious about who offers the best deals on top-rated Samsung, LG, and Sony TVs? The answer is surprising. It's not online, and it's not the warehouse clubs. The best deals on top-rated TVs are at video only. Don't believe it? Then check out the...
round. Miami knocked out the Knicks last night, so the Eastern Conference Finals almost set. Still have a Game 7 tomorrow between Boston and Philadelphia as the NBA heads toward a Final Four. 5 teams still remaining: Denver and the Lakers, Miami, and, of course, Boston and Philly, with one of those teams set to be eliminated tomorrow. 888-957-9570. Whitey, quick thought before we get back to the phones here.
Yes, real quick. This is the last chance I'll have to do this year, and it was countless times it seems I did this on Warriors This Week. Just looking at the box score from the night before, and Kevon Looney had 18 rebounds last night. He does that so often. The next day I'd look at the box scores. Man, I didn't know that. The Warriors, by the way, 20 offensive rebounds last night. That was the one area in the series where they really more than held their own, was the offensive rebounding. But Kevon Looney, no matter what they asked him to do all year long, there was so much drama this year. This guy's unhappy, that guy, and this and that. Kevon Looney's like, what do you need? And Kevon Looney, just very fitting last night in 26 minutes, 18 rebounds, 8 offensive rebounds. I'll miss being surprised by Kevon Looney until next season.
Yeah, he was terrific. And I think, your point on Kevon Looney, and I think it relates to where do the Warriors go from here, and sort of the redefinition, Whitey, of who is a part of the Warriors core. And I think it's something that is fair to evaluate at the end of any season with any team. And I think last year, go back to when they won the NBA championship, and you're thinking, wow, Steph, Klay, Dre, Wiggins, Looney, Poole, Kuminga's going to be a future star in a lot of people's eyes, and Moody's going to play a lot, and he's Mr. Steady, and James Wiseman at that point is going to come back, and he's going to have a role. I think what we now know is it's Steph, Klay, and Draymond, at least for one more year, as has been kind of laid out. Draymond said he wanted to be a Warrior for life. Klay's under contract. Steph's not going anywhere. And everybody's kind of going down that road. I think, though, as you start to look at, Jordan Poole's not a part of the core anymore, and Jonathan Kuminga may, he isn't part of the core regardless, but he may be somebody that they're forced to have to move in an attempt to fortify the rest of the roster with more consistently playable players around that core. And so I just think it's interesting. I mean, Kevon Looney is part of the core.
Yeah.
Kevon Looney is a trustable playoff player.
Yep.
You bringing up those numbers made me think of it. And, I think as we start to get into what do the Warriors do moving forward, I think it isn't just the big three. It's Wiggins as well, who was clearly compromised last night. And I'm with you. As soon as it was noticeable that he was compromised and they got down, it probably wasn't going to be their night.
Right.
But Wiggins is somebody that is a part of this. So you have, in essence, a starting 5. But how do you fix the roster in those 5 to 10 spots that allows you to get better and potentially contend? That I think is the question.
Let me know. I know we got to get to the phones here. Can't wait to get to the phones. The Ringer had some trade proposals for the Warriors today that just made me go, what? So at some point here, as we talk about the future, at some point, I think you will find these amusing. So we have those if you want to go to that at any point, JD.
All right, definitely. Let's go to Bill in Marin, though, on the phones as we get back to it. Hey, Bill, 888-957-9570.
Hey, so I was thinking something pretty simple. It seems like most championship teams have a solid number 2 player, to match with a star, 2 stars typically. And the Warriors used to kind of with Klay Thompson, but sadly, I think his days are gone. I think the Warriors really have to get serious and maximize what they have with Steph Curry, maximize what they have in his career, because it's obviously, you can't count on him being healthy everywhere. Basically, the clock's ticking on I think Steph Curry. I think the core, in my opinion, is one guy. Really, Steph Curry. A lot of the other pieces are moving parts. They didn't used to be, but I think they are. I mean, I would keep Looney. He's an incredible rebounder, but you got to have more two-way players. You can't. And Klay nowadays, sadly, is almost like a no-way player. He's inconsistent, and as anyone that gets old knows, when you get old, you get inconsistent, and that's the problem. You can't win championships being inconsistent, but they do have one guy still that could, that is worthy of it, and you need 2 people. That's typically, go through history, NBA history. You got a 1-2 punch almost always. Not always, but almost always.
Yeah,
So anyway,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
my comment. It's a bummer of a day, but that's the way things go. And who knows, maybe next year. But I don't think it's going to happen without major restructuring. I think it's foolish to think you can bring back these same guys. And
Okay. Thanks for the call, Brent. Bill in Marin. I thought it was an excellent point. And somebody called in last night on Warriors wrap-up and laid it out this way. And I hadn't really thought of it in these terms, but maybe I should have a little bit more quickly. He said, hey, the Lakers have LeBron and Anthony Davis. Like, that's a boom, like 1-2 punch, right? And you can talk about what they've done the rest of the rest, but they've got LeBron and Davis. The Celtics are in it right now. They've got Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Boom, 1-2 punch. The Philly has Harden and Embiid and Harden, right? And so you go through all of these teams. Denver has Jamal Murray to go with Jokic. Even the Suns had Booker and Durant. And the Warriors right now have Steph and you would say Steph and Klay in the past, but Klay is nowhere near any of these other twos, right? If Davis or LeBron are the two, if Booker or Durant are the two, if Harden or Embiid, Harden's the two for Philly, Embiid's the one, Tatum and Brown. I mean, every one of these teams have a better duo than the Warriors do.
Yeah.
And Steph is on par with the number ones, without a doubt, but there is a gap now at that number 2 spot, and the only way you can make up for it is with significantly more depth than the Warriors have, and they just never had that at any point this year.
I'm with you. I agree with Bill. I think that type of player is probably not attainable. There are some good players they might be able to get. I think they need Wiggins to continue to evolve in that way, and maybe Klay finds it. The thing about Klay this year, I thought that playing every other day maybe was physically just very taxing for him, but also he made some dumb plays this year, and even in the playoffs, he made some dumb plays. Like, you're not supposed to do that. That's part of the championship pedigree and all that. You're not supposed to make dumb plays. So, it was Steph and Klay, and then the pool party last year. So that was your core. And Bill makes a great point. It's going to be difficult. I think maybe Wiggins is your best bet to become that guy next year.
Yeah, and you could make the case that Wiggins was that guy in the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
and nobody really, people hinted at it and acknowledged it, but the pull there though is, and this is what's interesting, is the personality types, because you've got Wiggins, who that's not his personality type to be that guy, that alpha. It is Klay's personality type, and I think at times that works against him, as we talked about in the first segment when he isn't playing well. And I think Jordan Poole is that personality type. He wants to cook and get his shots and all, and that works against you. And so I do think there is this pull of, the guys that you want, to have that attitude. The guy you might want to have that type of mentality doesn't, and the guys who have it are guys that maybe need to dial it back. So interesting stuff there to be sure. Austin and San Jose as we continue here on the phone lines on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Austin.
Hey guys, good morning, Whitey. Good morning, JD. Love the show as always. Listen, a couple things last night was kind of hard to watch. I think everybody saw it toward the end. It really got hard to watch with the legs, and it looked like what bothered me a little bit looked like the kind of defeatist, almost defeatist, which I hadn't seen from a Warrior team in a while, which is something that we need to think about going forward. The other thing that I looked at some of the comments from Kerr and otherwise. And we talk about the core and all that. I think that word's thrown around pretty liberally. But I think the stars see the core as Steph, Klay, and Thompson, regardless of what everybody else says. I don't think they even see Wiggins as part of the core. I think Looney's probably considered to be more closer to the core than Wiggins, believe it or not. So I think there's something to watch in the offseason. The other thing I wanted to say, guys, is maybe you'll get into it later, but the disconnect that shows itself this year between the front office. You guys, I know nobody likes to criticize Bob, but I will. That would be Bob Myers and the coaching staff. That was a disconnect all year, JD, and it didn't get fixed between young guys, second timeline, whatever you want to call it. There was never a connection, and toward the end, you started to see comments that from Bob Myers saying that if I get a guy, he's not going to play him anyway. So I think that's the point. The team is not a connected bunch. They didn't play well together overall. There were times, but they weren't playable together. They didn't receive the result they want. So I think they've got to kind of build the team around what makes the most sense and make sure they're connected going forward. Because right now it's a hot mess, guys. That's all I got. Thanks.
Spot on, Austin. I mean, Whitey, get your thoughts on that. But no, that I think that's 100%. You could say there was a disconnect. I don't know. Definitely an age disconnect. The veteran players and the younger players. I'm not 100% sure that Bob Myers was the one saying, "Hey, these young guys need to play more." I know a lot of people tend to view it that way. Hey, he picked them, so he wants them to play more. That's one area where I'm not sure we totally have a full understanding of the inner workings of the Warriors front office and how much maybe ownership is involved there, and all of that. I know it's a collaborative, but I don't see Bob Myers sitting there thinking, "Damn it, play Wiseman." Like, damn it, play my guy Kuminga. Like, I don't know. It doesn't feel that way.
You're right. I did not see that disconnect that Austin's talking about. Maybe you're right, Austin, but the disconnect between Bob Myers and Kerr, I understand why you think you saw it and other people think they saw it. I didn't see that. For Bob Myers to say what he said about, hey, if we get a player and they don't play him, how does that help us? He's very smart. That would be like taking a shot at the coach, and I don't think he meant it that way. I think he meant we're not going to just get somebody if they're not going to play. I don't think he meant that as a shot at the coach. I think they had a great working relationship. I know earlier this year when I was in for somebody and we talked to Steve Kerr about the Bob Myers thing, and he's like, "I love Bob Myers. We need Bob Myers." There was no indication, in my opinion, that the disconnect was there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so, JD. There were disconnects in other places, but Bob Myers, Steve Kerr, I don't think so. And I think Steve Kerr is really, really hoping that Bob Myers is back next year.
No doubt. And I mean, just on a human level, as far as, the culture and different things like that, I mean, the culture is Steph Curry and his personality and leadership and demeanor and all of those things. But Bob Myers and Steve Kerr both are in line with that Steph Curry. If Steph is the number one of the franchise, Myers and Kerr they fit the bill in terms of that tone that you want to have set collectively.
Yeah, real quick before we move on, what did you think of Draymond not going back in the game in the fourth quarter? Because apparently Bob Myers said, "No, 6 minutes to go, we're down 22. You're not going back in." Thought that was very interesting.
Didn't care.
Yeah, you didn't care.
Yeah, no, no, I didn't. I didn't care that he didn't go back in the game.
Yeah,
like to me, like why? Is there some? If he had a little bit of an injury, why should he put himself? I don't know. What was I made a note of it, and I ended up not even mentioning it on the postgame show because I didn't think, were people saying it was something
Well, if there is anything there, and you're right, I mean, it makes sense, but it's an indication maybe Bob
he
is
quit
thinking,
or didn't want to be out there.
No, maybe Bob Myers is thinking, hey, big picture, maybe he is going to be around next year. It's certainly a stronger indication that Draymond's part of their future. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. No, I'm not I'm not saying he should have been out there. I just thought it's interesting that, game 6, Draymond's going out there and Bob Myers says, no, you got a little calf thing.
Well,
yeah. And another thing on that, remember when Draymond hurt his back last year on the game when when Klay came back, remember initially Klay had something in Draymond had something wrong with his calf. Remember that? And it turned out to be his back. So fingers crossed that Draymond's current calf situation has nothing to do with the recurrence of his back injury.
Well, and the other part of that is, and look, this is just reality. I mean, the Warriors lost 2 players in the final 2 games of the 2019 finals.
Yeah, absolutely.
In their final 2 games. I mean, Klay Thompson was lost for a year.
Right.
In their last elimination game loss.
Right.
in the
right.
playoffs.
Yeah. It was prudent.
And Durant,
I just thought it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, to me it was, I mean, could you imagine, and Bob Myers went up to the podium and was extremely emotional in both of those instances. Like, could you imagine the night, and it was a bad night, but could you imagine the night if Draymond, tore his Achilles in the final 5 minutes of a game that was when they were down by 20 and it screwed, so to me, if you're Bob on a human level, you just can't allow that. It's like, hey, we fought the good fight. They were better. This team wasn't good enough, and you move on. Like I had no issue with that, but I do think it shows the connect between Bob and the core.
Yep.
And I know part of the Shams Anthony Slater report, which dropped right after the game, was, hey, Bob Myers being around, and it was laid out that basically Bob is going to take some time to decide what he wants to do, which is kind of in line with what I've been saying over the course of this year. I know a lot of people think that this is cut and dry about, he doesn't like dealing with Lacob or he wants more money, and it's not like I really don't think. To me, it's more Bob trying to determine whether or not he wants to just continue or take a break or spend time with his family or just, hey, I've accomplished everything in this position that I can. I know that's hard for fans to understand. Like, why would he want to walk away? There has to be a reason. It has to be money. It has to be Lacob interfering. And I just don't think that's, like, maybe that's some small part of it. But to me, those are things that could be overcome. I think this is just more about Bob Myers and his life and just how he wants to spend it as somebody at a very young age who's accomplished a lot in his position. And he might just want to take a 2-year break and step away and refresh himself. Like, I don't think it has to be this personal indictment of anything, but to kind of keep going on that, the tone of that report is, and obviously everybody post-game, that everybody wants Bob Myers back, especially though the core.
Yeah.
And so it's, when you start, hey, who's the core, right? Steph, Klay, Draymond, Kerr, I think and I think they want Bob Myers to be part of that core as well.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. When you have so much success, sometimes you get to a point where the winning becomes not a joy, but a relief, and that's not a great situation to be in. And if he's anywhere near that, it's a great time to reflect and how much more can he do? If I had to bet right now, and I've been back and forth on this, if I had to bet right now, I think he's coming back next year, and I think everyone's going to be elated that he does.
Yeah, it hadn't felt that way, and I really don't know. I mean, I've kind of said I don't know.
Yeah,
but I know that the tone has been, the tone is that everybody's going to try to talk him into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point, and I don't necessarily think it's about money or other things like that. Like
right.
it's been played out. Let's go to the coach in Vallejo. 888-957-9570.
Hey, JD and Whitey, nice
Hey.
talking to you. Like most fans, I'm pretty upset about what happened. But one of the things I like to say is, the term unplayable, I really personally don't like that because I think that's the coach's choice whether to play someone or not. I figure if you're in the NBA, you're playable. Now, especially with Jonathan Kuminga, if you noticed in the past, he played LeBron James very well whenever he played against him. So I thought Kerr would try that. He played LeBron well last year. Kuminga played good defense on Ja Morant. He played good defense on Damian Lillard. And he helped carry the Warriors to the playoffs when Wiggins was out. So I don't see how unplayable in the playoffs applies to him. Now, also, too, Kuminga.
Did you watch the Sacramento series, Coach?
Okay. Well, that one particular play when he didn't go in to get the rebound, that's one. Okay, and after that, he never got another chance again. So I wouldn't say that's unplayable, and I think that was unfair to label all that on that one particular play. Now, also, too, when you get there and you have the better athletes in the world jumping high, and sometimes you have to play your best athletes. And I would love to see Wiggins and Kuminga on the court at the same time playing above the rim. Kuminga is actually the only Warrior on the team that can actually defend all 5 positions. So he sees his peer group that he dominated through high school and college all play for other teams, and he doesn't get to play hardly at all in 2 years for the Warriors. And overall, he had a good season for the Warriors. So I think it's unfair to label him a malcontent. He just wants to play like most athletes. So that's what I have to say, guys, and I'll be listening. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, appreciate it. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. He made himself unplayable in the Sacramento series, and he was the worst player on the Warriors in that series. He was a -10 in about 4 minutes in Game 2. He was a -3 in about 3 minutes in Game 4, and Kerr went away from him. He stunk in that series. Like, let's just be real and be honest. Now, as far as
he had 5 rebounds in the series.
as far as the Lakers series, I said this at the beginning. I was surprised that he didn't get an opportunity in the Lakers series, but if internally the core didn't trust him and he had been pouting, as had been reported, about not playing in the Sacramento series, like, to me, like, you have to understand why you didn't play in the Sacramento series. Like, if you're Jonathan Kuminga and you're pissed because you didn't play more in the Sacramento series, then you have an unrealistic view of your play in that series, and that's a problem. That being said, I was surprised. I think him not getting an opportunity against the Lakers may have been more about the way he reacted to not playing against Sacramento. But I also think it's a trust issue. I also think we talked about, Whitey, last week, the Lakers just didn't guard him and on the perimeter in that one game in February.
Yeah.
And I just thought he got put into the category from a playing standpoint of someone that's not an offensive threat, and that the Lakers would kind of expose for not being an offensive threat in this series if he got more time.
Yeah, I agree with you. The one thing I'll say, to Coach's point, the one time in this series where I thought, not that it matters what I think, but the one time I thought, hey, Kuminga might be a good fit here, was when it was slipping away second half last night and LeBron was getting to the cup at will. I thought maybe, this game is, you're probably not going to win anyway. I might put Kuminga in there just in an effort to try to slow down LeBron. What they did was they went zone, and they had some success with that anyway. But it's so hard to say because we're making assumptions. It did appear that he had some issues with his attitude after he wasn't playing. And young player, especially a team that's competing for the championship, if you're not happy, that has to be reflected. You have to express that through playing harder, not through holding back. You're just at that level, no matter who you are. If you're on a good team and you're not playing and you're showing that through some reluctance, whatever, rather than going out and playing your hardest, you're not going to play. I think he's gone. I know we don't want to, like you said, JD, don't want to spend the whole show on him. If I can get something of value for him, I'm not looking to trade him, but if I can get something of value for him and Poole, I think that's one of my few roads towards improving next year. So we may have seen the end of Kuminga as a Warrior. We'll see.
Look, I still think the ceiling is high for Kuminga. It's just a matter of how long does it take to get there. I respect the coach in Vallejo.
Oh, yeah, me too.
He didn't carry them to the playoffs. Like, there's this notion he didn't play that much last year. Like, I think there's a revisionist history component to, he had a couple of games where he helped them in the playoffs, and he was a part of the core. He barely played last year in the playoffs when it truly mattered. And I think there is this disconnect between people that think he's really good. Like, there are a lot of Warrior fans who think right now he's really good and really could help. And that's where I just completely disagree. Again, it's not an indictment of his career. To me, he shouldn't be saying that he wants to be traded if he's not going to have a guaranteed role, especially when part of the reason why he hasn't had a guaranteed role has been because he hasn't consistently done the things that the coaching staff has asked him to do. And when he's been a 10, a 6 to 12 minute player fitting in the role of being a role player, he hasn't been effective. And so that it just doesn't play, Whitey. But yeah, I do not want to turn this into 2 more hours of
right.
I love Kuminga, I hate Kuminga, trade Kuminga, I love Kuminga, Kuminga's Kawhi, Kuminga's Giannis, Kuminga. I don't want to do it. Again, I don't think, and I'm going to quote my guy Steiny. I know we're up against it and have to break. I'm going to quote my guy Steiny because I sent him the paragraph that I read earlier about the Warriors and Kuminga's representatives meeting and Kuminga basically wanting to trade. And Steiny said, in the last 10 years, and I'm giving him full credit because I think he said it beautifully. In the last 10 years, I'm not sure there's ever been more talk about a player who did nothing to contribute. I won't say nothing, but I'll say so little to contribute because he has not contributed at the level that he's contributed more in the delusions of Warrior fans' minds than he actually has on the court over these last 2 years. All right.
Yeah. Real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
Just Steve Kerr mentioned this to Tim Kawakami after the game last night. He said it's what the coaches see on tape every day. It's what the average fan isn't really going to decipher, but this is what we do. Young players take time. I have no doubt the way they all work and how much they care. They're all going to get better and they're going to grow, but it wasn't time yet, period.
All right, hour number 2 next, 95.7 The Game.
Did you know that most people wait 6 or 7 years before they buy a new TV? That's a lot of time in front of one TV. So why not get one of the best sets for the next 7 years, like one of the top-rated Samsung, LG, or Sony models? Too expensive? What if you could get up to $1,000 trade-in?
888-957-9570. We've got a lot of people on the phones realizing this is an emotional morning, and as we get into the afternoon here to keep this thing going until 1, we're taking all comers as far as anger, sadness, appreciation, trying to dissect where the Warriors go from here, just what went wrong for the Warriors this season. And if you want to get into some of the specifics about this Lakers series or even last night's game, we can do that as well. But what do you say we get back to the callers, Whitey?
Yeah, just real quick, if I could, I'm optimistic today. My Warrior Fun Cup is half full because A, this frustrating season is over, and B, there's every indication that the Warriors are going to go for it again next year. There was fear that maybe they'd break it up. Doesn't look like that's the case. So, yeah, disappointing loss, but it's really encouraging that they still have every intention of competing for a championship again next year. That's good news.
Absolutely. Jonathan in San Francisco next here on Warriors This Week. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, guys. First of all, if that's it for our dudes, it was an awesome ride, guys. I mean, this is coming from my big three used to be Daniel, Joe Smith, and Antoine. So this is just totally awesome. But if the plan is to go on and maybe get another chip, that plan better includes Draymond Green, because Draymond Green is just essential to winning. You can't replace the guy. I mean, that guy does the job of 4 other dudes. He's irreplaceable. So you got Steph, and you got him, and you got keepers like Looney, Wiggins, GP2. I would like them to keep Dante, because Dante, he's a scrappy guy, man. He does all the good things that you need to win a game, goes after rebounds, flies around, hits an occasional 3 here and there. Also, Moody's beginning to emerge as a steady Eddie guy. But just like you guys alluded to, and pretty much most of the calls here are taken today, we need a clear number 2. We need a number 2 that's going to be better than Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson, because Jordan Poole, I don't know if he's going to snap out of it, but he's inconsistent. And so far in his career, he's a one-hit wonder. For Klay Thompson, I mean, we all love Klay. I mean, he's one of our dudes, main guys, right? But at this point of his career, he's no longer a number 2. So if for the Warriors to compete again next year and maybe get that 5th championship for, Steph, they need a clear number 2, and preferably, I want that number 2 that his main game is not the shooting the 3-point shot. I want a banger. I want somebody who's a real power forward, a 6'10", 6'9" guy who just parks himself right there by the paint and gets either foul calls or, he has that steady presence in the middle.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's going to be very tough to get that kind of player. It's going to be very tough to get a number 2 player that's in line with, let's say, the other players that we've mentioned on some of these rosters of the teams that are still in the playoffs or have just gone out of the playoffs. That part, like for all of the different things we've discussed about different options, and I think it is fair to say, hey, the Warriors are not getting enough from their second best player, or at least didn't this season and didn't in the playoffs. If you consider him to be Klay Thompson, or even if you consider him to be Andrew Wiggins, who missed the final 2 months of the season and was still clearly trying to work his way back into form throughout the course of the playoffs. But I guess, Whitey, what I'm getting at is, like, the Warriors aren't really going to have the ability to go get a superstar like that, because it sounds like Jonathan's saying, hey, they need to go get a superstar to be Steph's number 2. They don't have the assets or the means to be able to do that this year.
Right. Couple of things there. Jonathan mentioned Draymond, and Jonathan, you probably are aware of this, but all indications are that, based on the reporting, that the Warriors want him and he wants to stay, and it looks like they're going to work out some sort of extension, and at the very least he has the option, but it looks like they're going to work out something longer term where maybe they get some financial relief. Anyway, it appears that everyone is on the same page there. It wasn't that long ago we thought, wow, this could be it for Draymond. Dante DiVincenzo, as John Hollinger wrote today, is Dante DiVincenzo. There's just virtually no way he's going to be back. The Warriors loved him and they'd love to keep him, but he's at $4.7 million. That's his option for next year, $4.7 million. He's almost certainly going to get more than that from someone else. So he's probably going to be gone, and then the Warriors will be looking for somebody like, I don't know, a Josh Richardson or somebody like that to take that roster spot on a minimum, something like that. So that's where it all is going forward. And I want to thank Jonathan for mentioning Donyell Marshall, because I thanked Joe earlier for mentioning Purvis Short. And it's always fun to remember the days that weren't as glorious as these days are, as bleak as things seem on this day after the Warriors were eliminated.
Yeah, and just more to the DiVincenzo point before we get back to the phones, the Warriors, the most that they could offer would be their mid-level. And that's only if they're still allowed to use their mid-level, which is a tax team they may not be allowed to use anymore. But that's still a little unclear as to when the new parameters. Eventually, a tax team will not be able to. But the only option the Warriors would have had, other than DiVincenzo opting in at $4.7 million, and again, his option, he's worth more than that, would be the mid-level exception. I think you could offer a 3-year deal at like $19 million. And so to me, I mean, if I'm DiVincenzo, I'm thinking I could get 3 years and $30 million somewhere, or at least 3 years and maybe $27 million at that point. So it is a significant difference for a guy who is 25, 26 years old still.
Proved his worth this year. He came in, and that's the deal. That's kind of like the Otto Porter situation last year. I'll come in. You don't have to pay me a ton because you can't. I'll help you, and then you help me reestablish my market value. And both those guys came here and did that.
All right, Dre and Lamore next here on Warriors This Week. Hey, Dre.
Hey, JD. Hey, Whitey. Thanks for taking my call. I was in Phoenix last night going to Laughlin. I listened to most of your show when it wasn't going out. Great show last night. Great show this morning. I got a few things to say. JD, you were correct on that caller who called early and said the Warriors didn't look good in the first quarter. Well, they didn't look good, but it's not that they weren't trying. It's just it's a miss or miss league. They had open shots. They just weren't falling. What Jonathan said, his big three, I'm an old man. My original big three was Rick Barry, Phil Smith, and Keith Wilkes. And so, with that being said, we still have not beat the Lakers in a playoff series. We haven't seen them in a lot of playoff series, but we haven't beat them. I really, really hate those guys. And the player that I hate on the court the most is LeBron. I respect LeBron's game. I respect LeBron off the court. Heck, I even agree with most of his politics, but I do think he's petty. I mean, I believe he didn't allow Varejao to get a ring the year when he went to the Warriors and we lost at 7 games. And also, do you remember the cake they made on Halloween?
Oh, yeah.
LeBron had a lot to do with that. And what's your guys' opinion on LeBron? I know you think he's a great player and respect him, but do you believe he's petty as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dre. No doubt he is. And look, the Warriors came back and won a couple of championships after that cake, where he declared him dead. Right? Remember, wasn't it a Halloween party and there were like tombstones of Steph, Klay, and Draymond? I think.
Yeah. That's sometimes the great players need to motivate themselves however they can.
I'm all for petty.
Yeah.
I'm all for petty.
It works. Yeah, and I'll just say this real quick. I think I mentioned this before. There was a young lady that used to be one of our interns, and my daughter played basketball with her, and she ended up working for LeBron's PR company. Oh. And she said there was some huge meeting with everybody there, and she said, I didn't even think he knew who I was, and he knew my name, and he's a really good guy to work for. So, to me, that we always see him on TV and what they say, and he says stuff that drives me crazy all the time. But bottom line, I guess deep down, he really takes care of people that work for him, and that's pretty cool.
Let's get back to the phones. Brian in Oakland on Warriors This Week with JD and Whitey. Hey, Brian.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I have just a lot of little comments or thoughts. I respect your idea that there's always needs to be two kind of fundamental guys that carry the load, but I think incrementally there's a lot of things that can occur. You think back to like the Celtics in their days, and it was Russell, with a bunch of guys that played roles, but the number two was who? Was it, Havlicek for a while? Yes, but was there anybody that, I think you can win championships without having a dominant 1-2 punch. And to that end, if I was going to kind of project what I'd like to see, I'd actually like to start with Looney. Looney, do you realize that Looney led the Pac-12 in three-point shooting as a freshman before they drafted him. And to see him continually pass up that 10 and 15-foot jumper, which I know he can make. I mean, we saw
made one last night, Brian.
Warriors,
he made one last night with a shot clock running down.
Yeah, no, he made a beautiful one. It was just it's easy, and I mean, look how strong the Warriors look when Draymond can score. That 20 and 10 game was awesome. And so if we can get those two to not only set screens, but kind of hit the 15-foot jumper, I think it would open up a lot. And then the other thought I had, or the other two thoughts, one is, Poole worked his butt off to become a pro and to really become a great shooter and offensive player. At least that's what all the reports were, that he was first in the gym and last out and bum. And so I guess my question is, and then he got paid, and, we read the rumors of the Ice Spice date and dropping $500,000 and all that. Is if he rededicated himself to trying to learn to play defense, is that something a player can actually improve dramatically, or is it sort of a slow incremental thing like we've seen with Curry?
I think it's more incremental. I think Curry's probably the perfect example, Brian, and thanks for the call, as somebody that was not a good defender. And Curry really has gotten stronger, which I think it helped his defense maybe more than anything. But no, I think Poole can get better defensively. He has to want to try to get better defensively.
Can't get any worse.
But it wouldn't be. I don't think you're going to see some dramatic turnaround from one year to the next. But even a small incremental bump, assuming he's around, which I kind of don't feel like he's going to be, I think would certainly help his stock.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Some really interesting points. I'll just say this about Kevon Looney, and I mentioned earlier, one of the things I'll miss about this show is looking at the box scores on Saturdays and going, man, did you see how many rebounds Looney had or how many assists? But he can't shoot. And I didn't know that he led the team in three-point shooting, or whatever the stat was that you cited from UCLA. I didn't know that. But he can't. I mean, you can just see him at the free throw line. He can't make free throws. So maybe that's something they can work on. I know Steve Kerr was asked about that earlier just a few weeks ago, and he said, no, I don't want to see Kevon Looney shooting three. Well, so that would be a project maybe, but it's not something like, hey, he should be shooting more threes, because right now he just is not a good shooter of the basketball.
No, he was a good shooter in college. It's interesting. I know I've joked about this. Our buddy Alan Stiles hipped me to, and you can Google this if you're looking for something, a little bit of a palate cleanser if you're a Warrior fan and you're trying to get over the end of the season. The Kevon Looney high school mixtape. Kevon Looney in high school looked like Kevin freaking Durant.
Sure,
like he would put it on the floor and hit pull up jumpers and I mean, just incredibly skilled. And I think you do see some of his skill on display with the way he runs the offense. I'm with you. Looney doesn't need to be shooting threes.
No.
Can he knock down some shorter jumpers here and there? Maybe. I do think one thing that stood out from the Sacramento series, I do think Looney can be more of a high screen dribble handoff passer. And in the Warriors offense than maybe they've used before. And that's a skill. He's gotten bigger, and I think that's obviously taken away from his shooting because he wanted to be a true center in the league, and that's been the position which has allowed him to thrive. But I do think he can be somebody that almost can be a little bit more of a stabilizing force when Draymond isn't in the game or available. I kind of like the idea of maybe those two start together, but you also have the ability to split them up as the game goes on. And he can be somebody that almost soaks up some of the Draymond offensive duties if Draymond needs a night off or if Draymond doesn't quite have it at the level that he used to have it at.
Real quick on Poole's defense, I remember years ago seeing something from a Chinese circus, and there was a bear and like this little dog in the ring. And the bear, they're supposed to perform together, and the bear just ate the dog. And I was reminded of that watching Poole trying to guard LeBron. Did you know? And that happened a few times. It's like, oh, no. I mean, he's a terrible defender. You're right, Brian. He's worked really hard on his game. That's definitely an area in which he could probably apply himself a little more. He's got to get a little better because he's an awful awful defender. He just runs up to people and bumps them, JD. Like, I know I can't guard you, so I'm going to bump you off your spot and hope I get away. And then he complains about the call. He's an awful defender. He's got to be able to get better.
Let's go to Jeffy in Miami. What's going on, Jeffy?
Hey, he could probably work on his defense a little bit better. I think it's more than probably.
Yes.
I mean,
he can work on it. He can work on it. It's just how much better can he get?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's got to show. Yeah, I mean, he's got to show a minimal amount of effort.
Yes.
At least. I mean, he's a no-show. I think this year, like if you just look back at everything, with the way that they used the two-way players over the lottery picks, like we don't even know what we have in the younger players because Steve Kerr refuses to play them. And the two-way players that he played throughout the year, they didn't even sniff anything in the playoffs. So, there's no way that you can say that those guys deserve to get more playing time than Moody and Kuminga because you know that the core is aging and you're hemmed in with the salary cap. So it's not like you can do a lot of anything with free agency just because you're tied into the salary cap. So why not see what you've got in these young guys? And the difference, there wouldn't have been, you would have been better if you played those guys. It's not like you could have been any worse during the season, especially on the road, if you're playing Moody and Kuminga more than you're playing Jerome and Lamb. And then, all they did this year is really get smaller. I mean, they just mismanaged it. It seems like they've mismanaged it a lot, and it seems like the locker room is just totally destroyed, and there's some major issues that are happening in the background that none of us know about. I mean, maybe, the media might have some more kind of insider knowledge, but there's something seriously wrong with this team, and it just seems like it's broken right now. And, you can bring the core back, but, I mean, look, Klay, when you're chucking up, 16 threes and you make 3 of 16, I mean, that's not helping us win anything. You know what I'm saying? So it's frustrating. I mean, the team, everything they've done for us as fans has been great. It's been entertaining, but there's something seriously broken and they need to fix it. And I don't know if they can. I mean, I just don't know if they can.
Well, they may not be good enough, and we'll see as they look to kind of double down on the big three, if you will. I do think, though, Whitey, I want to, and you know where I'm going, the two ways over the lottery picks. I still think a lot of that is just revisionist history. And to be honest, and I know a lot of Warrior fans don't agree with this, but Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome did deserve to play over Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody for a good chunk of this season. That's just reality. And here's the thing on Ty Jerome, and I know I'm going to get lost in the weeds here, but I want to explain it because I don't think a lot of people understand it. Ty Jerome doesn't play the same position as Moses Moody. So it was never a choice. And when Ty Jerome played because Steph Curry was out and Jordan Poole moved into the starting lineup, and you needed another backup ball handler. And so Ty Jerome would play in those instances. Moses Moody's not that player. So it was never Moses Moody should play over Ty Jerome.
Right.
It's just it's not that. Moody was a 2-3. I think he's really a 3. He looks like he's more of a 3 than Kuminga looks like at this point.
Yeah, a little bit of a tweener. Yes.
And it was also never really Anthony Lamb over Kuminga because Lamb became more of a 3 as the year went on. And a lot of times, as I mentioned earlier, they played together, and they played together with Draymond at the 5 and actually played really well. One of the Warriors' best forward trios this year was Draymond, Kuminga, and Lamb, because Lamb, and Steve Kerr talked about the fact that Lamb can stretch the floor because he can shoot. He's a sensible, smart, steady kind of a player offensively, and then Kuminga had the freedom to do the things in the dunker spot or in the corner that he likes to do. And so Kuminga's a 4 on this team more than a 3. And so, Draymond slides to the 5 and Kuminga could kind of step in and do things at the 4 spot. The thing that hurt Kuminga was GP2. Because they viewed Kuminga and GP2 offensively, and really I think even defensively, but offensively is kind of the same type of player. Dunker spot, corner 3 on offense. You're a 4. Peyton's a 4 on offense. And then on defense, because Kuminga is pretty bad at defensive rotation and knowing where he needs to be and getting lost when teams really make him kind of think defensively, they said, hey, all right, don't worry about any of that. We want you to be a ball hawk. Well, Gary Payton's a better ball hawk.
Yep.
And so when you have Gary Payton, then he gets moved in front of Kuminga as far as the depth chart goes. So, yeah, long-winded answer. I know those that have heard me have redundant, but it does need to be explained because a lot of people just think, oh, the lottery picks. Well, they didn't earn it.
Well,
they didn't earn it.
There's
Whitey.
this too. Yeah, there's this too. I mean, I think these numbers put the light of the notion that Kerr didn't want to play Kuminga and Moody, so that's why he played Lamb and Jerome Moore. He actually didn't. Jerome played 45 games this year. Kuminga played 67. Lamb played 62, and Moody played 63. So Kuminga and Moody both played in more games than Lamb and Ty Jerome. And by the way, minutes per game, Kuminga played more minutes per game than any of them. So I know it looked like that at times because every time you had a two-way player out there, to some fans, it's like, what are you doing? He can't be out there. Steve Kerr wasn't, he was reluctant to play Kuminga and Moody only because they weren't playing well, and the better they played, the more they played. And by the way, I know I've said Kuminga had a pretty good year overall. It didn't end well, and I think, bottom line, I think, big picture, Moody, considering what he did in the playoffs, he developed much better and had a better year overall than Kuminga did.
And a lot of people would say, again, go back and do the revisionist history thing and say, well, if Moody can do that, then he should have been playing all along, which I vehemently disagree with. But I do think Moody, in comparison to last year, where there was also some revisionist history because Moody played in like one game because Damian Lee stunk, everybody thought, oh, Moody was a major contributor to their run. No, he wasn't. Like he was fine when he got out.
Yeah, that big game against Dallas last season. Yeah,
he didn't get, and it was in game 4, I believe, with the Warriors up 3-0, if I'm not mistaken. But
I was thinking of a regular season game. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yes, in March. Yeah, he had a big fourth quarter.
Yeah.
No, you're right. He had a big fourth quarter in March, no doubt. But I will say this, for Moody's playoffs this year was tangible enough and enough of a sample size over how many games the Warriors play? 6, and they played 13 games. So he played 12 of them and was in the rotation in 12 of them. What Moody did this year, Whitey, in the playoffs, does translate to, all right, put this kid in the rotation next year.
Yep.
And let's not so I'm on the Moody bandwagon as far as steady, young, put him out there. Kuminga, I'm with you. Again, I know I get a lot of crap for being down on Kuminga. I don't think Kuminga had a bad year either. I just think a lot of Warrior fans think he's a lot better than he is right now. And it's like, let's take a deep breath. Let's understand he's not a great player right now. In fact, he's probably not even a good player consistently right now. And if the Warriors choose to keep him, he's going to have to continue to improve in ways that they want him to improve, to grow and develop. That's fine. But I also think, it's not that you want to get rid of Kuminga necessarily, but he would be one of the assets that could net you the players that you really are going to want if you're going to double down and build around the championship core.
Yeah, if I could trade Poole and Kuminga, I'm in no hurry. Well, I really am in a hurry to trade Poole, but if I could trade those two guys, and if I could get OG Anunoby, and I know that deal, some form of that, some variation that was discussed at the deadline.
My thoughts on that?
I would definitely do that, JD. I would be all in on that.
And I would be all in on that as well, because that would be another young wing rotation
defender. Yes.
And a defender, somebody that can help stabilize your defense. Now, the Warriors, that being said, do need shooting. You can never have too much shooting.
He shot the ball well this year, too.
But the problem is you have to fortify your defense and not have as many one-way players. The Warriors have too many of those. All right, good conversation. We'll take a breath here. 888-957-9570. It's Whitey Gleason. It's John Dickinson. We got one more hour to go.
Okay.
We're going to get to the phones. We'll reset everything as well. Just a lot going on here as the Warriors see their season come to an end in Los Angeles. Final hour on 95.7 The Game.
Ember Stomp 2023, Marin's Wildfire Prevention Festival. A free event for the whole family. Live music, demonstrations, fire smart landscaping, goats, and games. Learn new ways to protect your home and enjoy.
been a pleasure all year to be doing this show with you again. I know we did it for the second half of last year, and we used to do pre- and post-game together as well. And just an incredible run, man. It's a pleasure. I know we've known each other for a long time, and it's just been fun to collaborate and talk hoop about a team that's just as compelling, good or bad, as there is in pro sports.
Yeah, I know if it weren't for you, JD, I wouldn't be doing this. So thank you. I can't thank you enough. I enjoy it immensely. It's kind of sad that we're done for another year, but such is the cycle of sports. Thank you to everybody who's listening, Cam, of course, and Craig. We've had a great time and can't wait to rev it up again next season. Interesting that last night the company line for the Warriors, from Steve Kerr to Draymond to Steph to a degree, was, we just weren't a championship team this year. We just weren't good enough. So then the question becomes, well, why not? And then the bigger question is, all right, then how do you make sure you're good enough next year, which is going to make this offseason. It's too bad we can't continue to do this show during the offseason, because the offseason is going to be fascinating for the Warriors and for all their fans.
Yeah, and we'll see. Maybe we pop up here and there with some special additions around the draft or free agency.
Yeah.
That's something we can also. I can have you pop on the Warriors Weekly podcast as well.
Yeah,
from time to time.
Whatever you need, let me know.
I'm always, I'm like Bob Myers, man. I'm always thinking ahead. I'm always thinking ahead.
Yeah. By the way, the game's on right now.
Bob Myers in more ways than one, Whitey.
Well, 7:42 now left in the third. Lakers leading the Warriors 70-53 here on this. I think it's NBA TV replay, JD. So
if they can just get it to, if they can just get it to 8.
Yep, I'm with you.
How about, and I know we got full phone lines, so we'll get back to the calls. People have been waiting, but man, as bad as the Warriors played, 27-10 at the beginning, they're down 5 into the first quarter. You're thinking, wow, how is that? And then you go to the second quarter, and the end of the half just absolutely crushing with did DiVincenzo miss the layup or get it blocked or get fouled? Maybe a combination of all three. And then it goes to Reeves, and Reeves hits the beyond half court shot. And instead of being down 5 at the half, which the Warriors would have felt great about, you're down 10, and it kind of became one of those games from there where, all right, are you going to make your run to get it to like 2 or 3, or are they going to make their run to push it up to 17 or 18? And the Lakers pushed it right back up to 17. But even then, in the fourth quarter, and Klay just symbolized everything that went wrong for the Warriors last night and in this series. He had 2 wide open threes that would have cut it to 8 in the final 9 minutes, and they were like most of his shots, both of them just short. I think tired legs definitely
got a lot to do
probably
with it.
Part of the equation there.
Yeah, when it was 27-10 last night, and they showed the shooting numbers, and I was watching with some people, and I said, they're lucky it's not worse. And someone turned to me and said, "What did you say?" But 27-10, it could have been worse because they started so miserably last night, and then of course came back and actually for a short time made a game of it.
No question. 888-957-9570. Back to the phones we go. Let's kind of go rapid fire here. Michael in Berkeley gets us tipped off in the final hour for this season here on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Michael.
Hello, JD and Whitey. How are you?
Good.
That's good. It's sort of disappointing to hear all the Klay hate that's been going on this one. I know he's had a bad series, I guess you could say, but he also was the reason why they won Game 2. And you also mentioned, what the Warriors need. They don't, and Klay is always going to be a shooter. So one thing. The other, I think they need a big man, or they need someone of some size that can score around the rim. I think that was evident with the Lakers. They were taking away all the outside shots and giving the inside shots to the Warriors. And then along that, it was telling that on the Lakers chalkboard they said stop Klay. So give him a break. He did lead the NBA in 3-point shots this year. So maybe people will realize that at the end.
Sure, and look, he had a bad series. The issue with Klay is he's got to be more consistent. It can't be great game, and then the games where he's bad. The problem is the games where he's bad, Whitey, he kills you now. Like, you're losing the games where he's bad because he's bad. That never used to be the case. He just needs to be more consistent, and I think there has to be a realization that he has to play a little bit differently when his shot's not falling, a little bit more patiently. And I think the Warriors have to do that collectively as a team. So I don't like getting into this whole thing where it's like you're critical of Klay, and now you're a hater, and he hit more threes than anybody, so bleep you. And there was too much of that. And you know what? Klay brought that. Klay brought that energy. Like, every time he made a couple shots in a row, he wanted to come down everybody's road who had ever said anything about him not playing well, when the reality is he, for a good chunk of this season, did not play well, and at different times, and was kind of game to game. Is he going to be great tonight? Is he going to be terrible tonight? And you look up and the numbers are the numbers, and they're not terribly different from what he used to be, but how he got to those numbers was dramatically different, and it impacted winning and losing more to the negative than it ever has before in his career. That's just reality. It's not freaking hate.
Right. Yeah. I bless you, Michael, for sticking up for your guy, but criticism is not hate. Criticism does not equal hate. The most shots anybody took in the game last night, Steph took 28. Second most shots in the whole game for anybody on either team. Klay took 19 shots. He made 3 of them. And that really hurt the Warriors last night. That hurt him badly. Klay looked at the box score last night and he went, wow, shoot, which is what he's got to do, but he's got to shoot better. And we talked about it earlier, JD. I really think the fact that he's coming back from 2 catastrophic injuries, he suffered from the fact that he had a game every other night in this series, I think, as much as anybody. And I thought the Warriors might have an advantage there because of LeBron's foot injury and AD's brittleness, but I think Klay paid a steeper price for that than anybody on either team.
Robert in San Jose, 888-957-9570. Hey, Robert.
Thanks for taking my call, JD and Whitey. Just looking towards next year, would it be possible, since Brook Lopez is an unrestricted free agent, to do a sign and trade with Milwaukee and then pull to Milwaukee for Brook Lopez?
If Milwaukee wanted to do that, yes. I also believe if you do that, though, I'm trying to I guess because Poole's already under contract. So I'm trying to think if that would trigger the luxury tax. Well, the CBA is different too.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Bucks would have to want to do that. I know he's from that area, but go ahead. I'll let you continue, Robert.
I think that was
lose Robert.
Yeah, I think
okay,
that was the
all
gist
you
of
wanted
what
to know.
Robert's question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No problem. Again, if you do a sign and trade and you're over the tax, I think it triggers, or at least it used to trigger, a
hard cap.
Yeah. Hard cap. But again, I think that might be only on Milwaukee's side because Milwaukee would be the guy signing, because Jordan Poole is not a sign and trade player. So maybe it's if you take a player back in a sign and trade, because the Warriors did that with D'Angelo Russell. And so I think you took a player back in a sign and trade, you get hard capped, which that just isn't going to work logistically.
That's if you can figure out how to find the money to even get in the ballpark to make that trade anyway, to pay him what he's gonna.
And so that's just not. It's just not realistic. And Milwaukee's not. I mean, Milwaukee, I don't think wants Jordan. Like the part of this deal with Jordan Poole. I mean, let's just be real about it, Whitey. Is you can look to move him, and maybe looking to move him is for in part financial relief because he's going to be making $30 million this next year. But the truth is on Jordan Poole, somebody's got to want him, and you do need to get players back in return that can help you and that can be a part of your rotation. Like, it's not just addition by subtraction as much as maybe the way things got with the personalities may appear that way.
Mm-hmm. By the way, the scuttlebutt is that, for what it's worth, Oklahoma City has a lot of cap space. That may be a team that would be in position to make a run at Brook Lopez. But I don't think it's against the rules to do what the caller suggested, but I just don't think it's feasible given where the Warriors are cap-wise and financially.
Brian in Morgan Hill, 888-957-9570. Hey, Brian.
What's up, guys? So it's pretty clear that this dynasty core is in decline. So how long are we going to keep doing this, trying to rebuild around this core? It's been proven almost impossible in every other sport, including basketball, to do this. So what would you say if I said you could have 7 or 8 lottery picks trading away the core 3? Would you take that?
No,
I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't do it, but I appreciate Whitey Bryan bringing the reality to the table of if you do believe the dynasty is in decline, and the only other option is tear it down to the studs, because the Warriors now don't have a second timeline, right? They don't have a savior. They don't have this group of young players that are going to take the torch from the big 3. So if you do believe that, and look, the Warriors aren't doing that, but at least he brought the appropriate move, which would be tear the whole thing down, which they're obviously not looking at.
But and Brian obviously is a very intelligent guy, knows what he's talking about here, but isn't what he described as so difficult and almost impossible, isn't it basically what the Warriors did last year and they won a championship that way?
Yes, although at that point 2 years younger than they would.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know, Whitey, and we may look back on it and go, wow, that was the timing on the Warriors' ability to be able to do what they did last year was perfect.
I agree.
Because the big 3 had just enough left in the tank. And the way the season played out with all of them almost getting a month rest in the season because of their various injuries, but yet they were all back right as the playoffs started, and the ancillary pieces all fit together really well. Jordan Poole was a completely different player last year. Wiggins was a much higher caliber player last year as well.
And here's the other thing, JD, that went into last year's championship and goes into your decisions for next year. The NBA, there's no great team in the NBA right now. Someone's going to win the championship. They're going to be a very good team. But those days, those 1 or 2 teams will win 65 games. It's wide open right now. So for the Warriors, you look at that and say, okay, we got to take advantage of that, which I think to a degree they did last year. Boston was a very good team, but there's no great teams this year. Did anyone win 60 games? No. So this is a good time in a way for your core to start to age because you're closer to the top than you normally would be because that ceiling on the best team is not as high as it's been in many, many years. So there's an opportunity there.
That's how you could be 44-38 and still be a 6 seed.
Yes.
And have a winnable series in the first round at the level, and the Kings were no joke as that series played out.
Or be in the play-in and make it to the conference finals as both the Heat and the Lakers have done.
Right. And normally to your point, the Warriors with the season that they had, they would have been a play-in team for sure. They would have been playing a team that was clearly better than them over history.
Yeah.
The seeding and everything kind of got a little bit backwards. If the Warriors had been their best version and the Lakers had this team that they have now for the whole year and been at their best version consistently with the load management and all that, I think you could make the case that it probably the Warriors and the Lakers might have been the 3rd and 4th best teams in the West, or maybe even the 2nd and 3rd best teams in the West in the regular season.
Yeah,
and,
if they could have held up, health-wise.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And they weren't, and it got all flipped around. But that does open the door, I think, moving forward. All right, Filmo Mike. What's going on, Filmo? 888-957-9570.
Oh, man. Hey, great season. It is what it is. You can't win every year. But we do need a true dunker spot player. GP2 is cool, but we need, somebody that's 6'8". How many times did we throw the lob this past series? You feel me? Like that little lob that Draymond could throw. We was throwing a lot of bounce passes. We didn't really throw the lob because we didn't have nobody aside. But that goes to also we need more versatile players. Two-way players, a little bit bigger. We had DiVincenzo, cool player. GP2, cool player. But we needed some other players. Iguodala was a no-show the whole year. Moody is definitely a trusted agent. Draymond, he got to work with Steph, or he should work with Steph. Everything Steph do this summer, Draymond need to be tagging along with him and his trainer. No lie, because honestly, Draymond played a decent series, but them little 16, 17, 15 footers, bro. Your Instagram name is Money Green 23. That got to be money, bro. It should, because honestly, you look at it. He talk about, I love Draymond. He's a savant, hella smart. But, bruh, when you look at the game, if you just shoot that shot and hit it 50% of the time, it'll be a great look. Klay had a horrible series. Horrible. Very good season. Very good season. People talked about we faced a lot of things. They faced everything. Klay Thompson ain't never played the Lakers in the playoffs, the team he grew up watching and idolizing, and he was expecting to do whatever he was trying to do. He never went through that. It was the first time I ever watched Klay this series in which I was kind of like happy and surprised that the ball went in. Like, I was like almost shocked. Like, oh, man, okay. Oh, come on, Klay. Man, for sure, Klay, thank you. Like, I was like, it wasn't like expected. He had all type of open shots, and he was bricking them. It was like, well, he'll probably miss. And last thing I want to say, this is the last thing I want to say. I love Poole. I hope we don't trade Poole. Poole ain't nothing. Steiny said this, and I stick to this. He ain't nothing but a young Curry. I swear to God. Give him some time. Give him some seasoning. Get off his line. Let a little man live. And just, man, y'all have a great day, man. I'm sorry for rambling.
Not at all.
No, it's a good call. No, great call, Phil Mo. Again,
you may be a young Eddie Curry. I mean, he ain't a young Steph. Come on.
How do you get better though without moving Poole or Kuminga? Like, that's just the reality.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get better when you're quadrupling down on the championship 3? How do you get better? And to me, Wiggins is exactly the kind of player you want. So I think Wiggins ain't going anywhere. You just got him on a deal that's going to start going down in terms of finances. Looney is Mr. Stability and trusted by the other 3. So to me, those 5 are here. I think you'd love to have Moody here moving forward because he's steady. Moody fits. Fits the ethos. I love that. We had a caller that said that Poole doesn't fit the ethos. Well, Moody fits the ethos. So Moody's there. And then it's not so much, everybody wants to run Poole out of town right now. Okay, understandably. There's a lot going on there they got to figure out. But Poole and Kuminga are the only young assets that you can use to attempt to get better. So it's not even, in Kuminga's case, like you want to give up on him necessarily, although it sounds like he may be given up on them if he's not going to be guaranteed a certain role per the Shams Slater report. But how do you get better? And so that becomes the question, when you say, as the Warriors did, that this group wasn't good enough, and they weren't.
One of the things that dragged the Warriors down this year was whatever this disconnect was, and it seems like those 2 players, and it's their right, they were not happy, and that was certainly a contributing factor to that negativity, it would appear. And I know, well, Draymond punched Jordan Poole. You can't blame Jordan Poole. I understand all that. My point is it doesn't seem like either one of those guys would be brokenhearted if they were on their way out. So given that, okay, here's my 2 guys that I could probably get something for, they're younger, and neither one of them really loves it here. I mean, it's almost the thing that worries me is that it's so obvious you have to trade them that I wonder what you're going to get back for them, how much that damages their market value. But it appears that, like I said earlier, of all the paths towards getting better, there aren't that many of them, and that appears to be one of them, and maybe the shrewdest one. And I hope Philmo's right about Poole, and I hope other teams see that and go, man, this guy's really good. He's a young Steph, because then you're going to get more for him. But it looks like that's really something you got to explore, is the possibility of getting something for a package, including those 2 guys.
Robin in San Francisco next here. Hey, Robin.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing? How, Whitey?
Hey. We're doing okay, Robin. How are you doing?
So listen, well, I'm not, I talked to JD last night. Listen, you guys, I don't have no magical formula. I want to present some things to you. I know we don't have enough money. I used to ask my daddy to borrow some money, and he used to tell me El Broco, and I used to say, it's no dinero. He used to say to me, it's El Broco. You understand that, don't you?
Yeah.
So I say that to say, don't they understand that the Warriors don't have the damn money to do these things they suggest? That just irks me. That tells me they're not diligent. They don't diligently follow things. And I don't know why it sends a bug up my butt. But another thing that I just want to say, I want to ask you guys this. With Klay, you know how it took him, you you know how, it took him, he was out 2 years. He was out 2 years. Don't you think it would take him that amount of time to get back to half of what he was? I know a lot of it is attitude, but it takes you that much long to completely recover, right? And then in terms of Poole, I'm not making excuses. I'm asking questions here. Poole, look where he came from to what he rose to and then what he had to go through. Now, is it possible that this is part of his growth period and that you should give him one more year? I'm asking these questions. I'm thinking, trying to think logically here about circumstances and what it takes to get through them circumstances and to get back to the point you were through those circumstances, or even if it's well worth it. And I hope I'm making sense to you guys. Peace out and love you both. I'm going to miss you. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
888-957-9570. Excellent phone call there. I think it's a fair question because the Warriors are going to have to grapple with the notion of wanting to get off a Poole potentially with what you're going to get back, and is what you're going to get back be worth the growth that maybe he can make as a player if you kept him? And I think you have to ask the same question about a guy like Kuminga too, as the other young asset that another team would want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, not to beat a dead horse, but given that neither one of them seems to have much of an appetite for staying, it's hard to know for sure. But
how it seems.
It's risky then to keep them, right? Because you could have that happen again next year, and that's the last thing that you need. Yeah, I mean, it could be part of Poole's growth, but it just depends on things we're not privy to. Like, how bad is the relationship between he and Draymond and he and the rest of the team? But I think it comes down to the finances too. There's lots of reasons besides the fact that you've got this dark cloud hanging over them of discontent. He's going to make so much money next year. And even with Poole, you weren't very good this year. And I know that's largely because he was so bad in the playoffs. It's the prudent thing. You take the emotion out of it, and I'm still left with, wow, that would be a real sensible thing to explore a trade for those two guys. It's not about because he's this or he's that or that he's unhappy. It's like, that just seems to be the most sensible thing to examine given my limited options.
All right, one final segment straight ahead. John Dickinson, Whitey Gleason, 95.7 The Game.
So, how's your research going?
Surprising. After I figured out the top-rated TVs in our price range, I went shopping for deals.
And who's the best?
It wasn't the internet, and it wasn't the warehouse club.
But?
It was video only. They had better deals on the Samsung, LG, and the Sony TVs that got them.
second round to the Lakers last night. We had a caller earlier that brought up Jonathan Kuminga, or actually he didn't bring up Jonathan Kuminga, but it made me think of Jonathan Kuminga. He mentioned interior scorer off the bench, and I think he was talking about more of a true big, like maybe a 5. But I do think that's an area where Kuminga, if he is around, can help. And I know the Warriors did their exit interview press conferences this morning, basically going on here during the show. And one thing Kuminga said he really needs to work on is rebounding. So, that's something that was harped on by the coaching staff. But I do think he can be, without worrying about him being unleashed or being this potential future all-star type player, I do think if the Warriors keep him around and he continues to develop, he is somebody that should be able to help them next year in a few more meaningful ways than he even did this year. And I think he helped more this year than he did the year before. But it is that short post around the basket, attacking, drawing fouls, dunker spot type of a player. Like, I think he could be a little bit of a dunker spot type of a player. And we saw him have some games where he did that and he cut really well. And the Warriors offense allowed him to basically get 15 to 20 points just on layups. And that to me is an area where I think if he's around, can help. Like, to me, you need to think more about, can he help in those ways next year? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Can he get better in terms of seeing the floor defensively and knowing how to help and being in the team concept? Can he be a more consistently high motor player than he's been? He's been a low motor player too much for me to this point in his career. Can he do those things that help a team win? That's my 2023-24 question as you look to, do you want to keep Kuminga around or not? Will he do those things? Not, is he going to be an all-star in 2026? Like, I don't care about that right now. Like, he needs to be able to help because he very well be an all-star in 2026. But if he can't help you next year, then you have to look at maybe not having him around.
Do you agree that if bringing back the group for the most part, if you bring back your top 8 or 9, in my opinion, that's not smart. And I think if you do that, maybe you work things out with Poole, figure things out with him, and you find some common ground. And Kuminga, same thing, and then he gets better. I could see how you could squint and say, hey, then you're going to be a much better team. To me, that's not very realistic. I don't think that's the path forward.
And again, if you're, as the Warriors have, at least in these first 15 or so hours since they lost last night, are really hell-bent on bringing the big 3 back, well, how do you change it then? Like, that's the thing. Like,
exactly.
If you're, because they are saying it hasn't worked, well, if you're bringing those players back, well, there's only a few players that are going to go. And look, maybe it's, I wouldn't be looking to move Wiggins or Looney, but maybe Wiggins and Looney are players that, depending upon who you could get back or if you could find the right trade, maybe you would have to look at as well. But
the problem with Looney is he doesn't make that much money, so you don't really, and he's so valuable, it's hard, because that's the other thing. You're trying to address this money crunch. And, yeah, Wiggins, you'd get out from under his money, but trading Looney, there's almost no upside to it.
No doubt, and I don't think the Warriors are looking to do that at all. But again, it's like we don't want to get it twisted here when we talk about the big 3 and the others. I mean, really, when you're talking about the big 3 plus 2, it's Looney and Wiggins. And if you're talking about, and I even kind of think Moody, although not a lock in that category, I think Moody in some ways is almost the next guy now. Like, he's almost the 6th trustable guy. Poole and Kuminga, we'll see. And again, with Kuminga more being about, does he really want to be here and all of that. All right, back to the phones, rapid fire. Manuel in Dublin, 888-957-9570. Hey, Manuel.
Hey, guys. Appreciate the shows all year long, man. Great shows. Real quick, I thought LeBron heard the national media. I think he turned it up at the last couple of games. That it looked like there's no way Klay could have guarded him. Wiggs guarded him for a little bit, but he was just feeling moody last night. Dennis Schroeder, or whatever his name, the kid that kept flopping. I was glad to see the slow motion play like that where he actually pulled. I think he pulled down Peyton. That was a good way to really show the fans what he's been doing the whole series. The Lonnie Walker game, what can you say about that, man? I mean, the guy just got on the heater that was unstoppable. And AD, I haven't seen AD play like that. Maybe his early years with the Pelicans. They just overmatched us. I thought, we could have got game 1 and game 4. I got the Lakers beating Denver. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. I'll be tuning in all off season, and see where this team goes. And I'm a Warrior fan for life, but I just want to talk more about what happened last series. You guys have a great show. Take care.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Look, that was Anthony Davis was tremendous. LeBron was amazing once I think he could smell blood in the water and knew that he had a chance to finish the Warriors off.
It up
he
a
saw
notch.
their vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
He saw their vulnerabilities and we're like, hey, we're not losing this thing. And he ramped it up and was able to get to the basket. And that was Davis, I think, of the bubble, really, when the Lakers won the championship. Like he looked healthy, and he is the kind of player defensively especially, and he hurt him offensively too, but defensively especially, he is the kind of player that really hurts the Warriors. You kind of run them off the three-point line, you make them take difficult threes, and then you force everything into the paint. And the Warriors, not consistently enough in this series, they were unable to finish in the paint, which is part of why they struggled so much to score.
If I had to pick, I'd pick Denver. Some of that is because I want Denver to beat the Lakers. But I think the Lakers, they're not a good shooting team. You wouldn't know it from last night, I realize. But Denver's got a lot of traction defensively this year. Lakers not a good shooting team, and I think that's going to give the Nuggets the edge going forward. We'll see.
I think that's a really tight series. I think the Nuggets are I'm going to pick the Nuggets. I'm going to pick the Nuggets in 7.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really well-balanced Denver team. I wonder about Murray and Porter. To me, those are the two guys that I think Jokic is going to be outstanding. I like Denver's depth. To me, it comes down to, are Murray and Porter going to become championship players in this series? And it's going to be a bright light series for Denver. It was going to be that way either way, but the Lakers are obviously playing better than the Warriors are at this point. Just knocked them out. And so I think that's going to be a hell of a test for Denver. But this is the year, right? They didn't have Murray the last 2 years.
Right.
They didn't have Porter last year in the playoffs. And, the last time they were whole, Denver, they went to the conference finals and lost to the Lakers in 2020 when the Lakers won the bubble championship. And so this is Denver's shot, I think, with this core group, maybe their best shot with this core group, although they still are relatively young. They've been the best team in the West all year long, hands down. That guy in San Francisco next at 888-957-9570. Hey, that guy. Oh, we just lost that guy.
Oh,
bummer.
That guy.
Peter in Saratoga. Oh, wait, Don. Don in Sunnyvale. Don in Sunnyvale next. Hey, Don.
Hi. Big fan of Klay Thompson. I hear, it's obvious his shooting slump, but what do you guys think about him getting back to where he was defensively? That's the part that worries me actually equally as his shooting.
I think it's going to be tough, Don, and thank you.
I thought he made some strides this year. I don't think it's realistic. Even if he hadn't gotten hurt, he probably wouldn't be the defender that he once was. But
Sure.
I thought he made strides this year. He definitely had some moments defensively that he didn't have last year.
No doubt, and I think he probably has to get better at guarding bigger players.
Yeah,
I think he isn't, and I know there was the one game, I think it was game 2, where he did a really nice job on D'Angelo Russell, and the Warriors switched it up and put him on Russell at the beginning, and the Warriors were really, up until last night, able to kind of handle Russell after the first game of the series in that first half of game 3, when he came out cooking in that game. But as far as Klay, I mean, I don't know if the defense is coming back. And so if the defense isn't coming back, you need to make sure that you're at least a consistently useful offensive player. And, I want to be clear, too, on Klay because, we're getting a little heat and some of the fans, I think, are coming down on him hard. And that's all, I think, fair given how poorly he played. I made the comment earlier, he's not a max player. And right now he's not a max player. Like, he's going to make $42 million or whatever it is next year.
43.
I don't think you could. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you could trade him for the value that you would want to get back for him if you were going to make that trade. So I know there's some people that are saying trade him. I know there's been the reports, ESPN, the front office is in with Klay just as they're in with Dre and Steph, and that's fine. My thing with Klay, though, is right now, if he truly does want to be a max player, then it's all going to be on next year, because he right now is not a max player. And I'm doubtful as to the fact that he'll be able to go out next year and have this unbelievable season to where he would make himself a max player again. But if Klay wants to continue to be a max player, he needs to go be a freaking all-star, next year, and be solid defensively and shoot it, not in volume where I don't care about leading the league in makes. I want you to lead the league in percentage, or be top 5 or something like that, and take smart shots. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Klay can help the Warriors. Like, that's not what I'm saying. It's just he has to go about it less defiantly and in a more disciplined and focused manner on the nights where he isn't hitting shots, and play less freaking stubborn, like you said earlier.
Focus, that's the key to me. I know Don's concerned about his defense, understand that. Playing every other day, I think, was really tough on Klay. But just real quick, couple of moments that stand out about Klay's lack of focus. You go back to Game 6 against Sacramento, third quarter starts. Keegan Murray is on the left wing, and he's unguarded. No one's guarding him. And it's like, I think that was Klay, just didn't understand what they were doing, doesn't pick him up. And then you go back to Game 4 against the Lakers. There was a sequence, remember, Klay took a couple of bad shots. One of them he took, and Anthony Slater broke this down brilliantly in The Athletic. You could see Kerr, like, with his hands, like, what are you doing? And even Draymond, after he threw the pass, like, what are you doing? And those are moments. And then there was a moment last night out of a timeout where they didn't know if they were in zone or man-in-man. I don't know if that was on Klay or not. But those things just can't happen, right, on top of everything else. So those are the things that are most concerning to me, the mental lapses that we saw from Klay in some of the biggest moments this year.
All right, 888-957-9570. Again, I think he can be a productive championship player still, but to me, it's about the mindset. And if he wants to be a max player, he's going to have a spectacular year next year, and it's going to have to look a lot different, and the energy is going to have to be a lot different moving forward. All right, Josue in Fremont. As we go rapid fire here, final 10 minutes of Warriors this week on 95.7 The Game. Josue, what's on your mind?
Hey, guys, good morning. I'll do rapid fire. Thank you, Whitey. Thank you, JD. It was a great season. Speaking of take in, trying to end the season on a positive note. 9 years, 6 finals appearances, 4 championships, and a letdown year was going Game 6 against the best team in the league since the All-Star break. I'm just really thankful to be a part of Dub Nation. It could be another fan base like Memphis or Phoenix, and that would be a bummer. So I'll go out with that. I'm looking forward to the next year. It's going to be an interesting off season. I can't wait to hear you guys, any commentary on the 49ers coming up. And thank you guys for all you do. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Josue. Any thoughts, Whitey, on any of that?
That's a great point, and I know there's been this ongoing narrative about what the team owes Steph, and I just think, given where they are, the success they've had, the fact that it appears the team is going to do everything they can to keep the core together to remain relevant as a contender. Steph deserves that, Joe Lacob deserves that, and the fans deserve that. So I know, as I said earlier, it's a disappointing day because they lost last night. Great point about, hey, a bad year is when you lose in the second round to the team with the best record since the All-Star break. But the news that they're going forward with this and not breaking up, that is tremendously good news and should carry Warrior fans through this offseason.
Peter in Saratoga is up next here on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Peter.
I like what you just said about Klay, and I'm going to take issue. I feel like we're living in Jonestown here. The last night, Van Gundy said at some point in the second quarter, he said, Draymond, nobody's covering Draymond. They never do. And he said, and by the way, in 18 minutes, Draymond is minus 32. Then Draymond sat down, and they went from a 17-point deficit to a 5-point deficit. And this is like nobody understands. Nobody covers Draymond. And I think the disconnect in the locker room has a lot to do with him slugging Jordan Poole. You know, when Will Smith hit Chris Rock couldn't perform for 6 months. I mean, unless the Warriors want to, draft Steven Jackson or Will Smith, I think they need to trade Draymond. Draymond didn't like Kevin Durant when he was on the team. Draymond wants his little core of people, but Draymond is toxic. And I think that Jordan Poole could start learning how to shoot a 15-foot shot, and maybe Iguodala is supposed to mentor, Poole and Kuminga. Maybe Iguodala can actually do some mentoring. Seems like what he's doing isn't working. But I think Jordan Poole, if you trade Draymond, you could. It's like adding Poole, because Poole's head might be turned around. But I think Draymond was part of the fracture in the locker room, and I'll just leave it at that.
No, I think that's been well chronicled. I do want to spend a minute here on Andre Iguodala. Andre Iguodala was a complete waste of time this year. I mean, Andre Iguodala was a fraud. And whatever, it was small time money, and it obviously exponentially goes up. If Steiny said this earlier in the week, and I wholeheartedly agree with it, and it's a thought that I've had and kind of brought up at different points. If Iguodala's guys to mentor were Poole and Kuminga, I mean, what does that say about the ability for Andre Iguodala to be a mentor? And, Iguodala is about the business, and he's, cynical and, all this stuff. I mean, you want to talk about bad vibes? Iguodala was a joke this year. And I get it. He couldn't contribute. He wasn't healthy enough to contribute. But I think Warrior fans were expecting him to contribute more than he really was going to on the court. And then he had some injuries and never really was. That was, to me, Iguodala for this year was a fraud. It was like they wanted him to come back, so it's not like he conned them.
Right.
So my point is he brought nothing to the table this year along the lines of what he was supposed to bring to the table in terms of leadership. And if you think Poole and Kuminga were his guys, then wow, what a joke. Then he should share some of the blame for their attitude being as terrible as it was.
I wouldn't go so far as to call him a fraud because, as you said, it looks like they really wanted him to come back. I think that speaks to the fact that the organization recognized, wow, we have issues with our chemistry. We're really short. We don't have a lot of talent. I mean, it was almost an act of desperation. But and I understand your larger points about didn't seem like his leadership made much of a difference. We'll never know. To Peter's comments about Draymond, it'd be really tough to trade Draymond because he has the option. And, hey, you could do a sign and trade or something. It looks like they want to keep him. It looks like he wants to be here. And that is going to be what happens most likely. But even if you wanted to trade him, it'd be very difficult to do when he's got that player option. You could maybe convince him that, hey, you're better off going somewhere else. But I don't think they are. And I don't think he wants to be anywhere else.
Jason in San Jose on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Jason.
Yo, what's up, guys? Hey. How you doing?
Good.
Hello. So, listen, I just wanted to kind of go on a more philosophical note. You asked about what the past 10 years have really meant. And, what I would say is I didn't come up a sports fan at all. Just wasn't part of my upbringing. It wasn't until I went to college and I met my buddy who was a big-time Lifetime Warriors fan. And that was right about the time Steph Curry was coming up. And I'll just say, without Steph Curry and the Warriors being as amazing as they are, I don't think I would have ever discovered the joy of basketball or even just the joy of sports in general. So it's had an impact on my life, and I just want to say I'm thankful for it. And if this is it, hey, it's been an incredible ride, and I'll be a Warriors fan until I die. That's it.
Appreciate it. Yeah, good stuff. I mean, that is the bigger picture perspective and all of this. And, being as close to and covering this team over the last decade as I have and you have, Whitey, at times, I mean, it is incredible. And it's worth taking a moment here. And I put this out last night on Twitter, and everybody knows 19 consecutive Western Conference playoff series won before last night. That's just outstanding. 28 straight series with a road playoff win. Every single one that Steph, Klay, and Draymond played it in their careers, they won at least one road game. And every single series, that even went back before Kerr to the 3 playoff series they played with Mark Jackson as the head coach 10 years ago. Just 4-0 in elimination games on the road under Steve Kerr before last night in the loss. I mean, this team has just built such a connection with the Bay and this fan base from Oakland to San Francisco and the South Bay and everywhere in between. And yeah, I mean, it's, people are going to remember for the rest of their lives, frankly, the what this team did and brought. It's an all-time great squad. It has been. Maybe it's not quite anymore. They'll try to get it back, but the last decade has been just unlike few in the history of professional sports.
Yeah, I remember before the Lakers played the Celtics in 1987, that was the third time in 4 years they'd met in the finals. And I remember thinking about it and thinking, man, this is not going to go on forever. This has been incredible. We're so lucky as basketball fans that we've gotten to see this. Basketball, as most people, feel the way you do here, most people listening feel the way you and I do. We love basketball. It's such a beautiful game, and to be so close to have seen the Warriors do what they've done, play the game the way no one else has ever played it. Steph Curry's played the game the way no one else has ever played it. It's been we're so fortunate, and we get to, still witness that going forward. Maybe the best of this run is done. It appears that it is, but that's okay. It has been, to Jason's point. We're all lucky that we've been so close, and we're lucky that we get to keep watching it next year and beyond.
Adam in San Francisco is going to be our final caller here of the season on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Adam. Oh, East Bay Pauley. All right, East Bay Pauley. Adam dropped, so East Bay Pauley gets to be the final caller of the season. What do you got, East Bay?
Hey, how you guys doing? Enjoy your work this year. Hopefully your bosses give you guys some raise. You guys deserve it. The problem I had with Steve Kerr this year in the playoffs, especially in the Lakers series, they went through a tough series with Sacramento. Was up and down. We got tired players. But I thought Steve Kerr should have played his zone. And he didn't do that. And I also kind of felt sorry for Steph this year because Steph's got about a 3-year window in his prime. And he didn't really get no help. And the Warriors were beat against Cleveland when they ran a pick and roll on Steph all the time. And it just tired him out. Schroeder was giving Steph some problems, tired him out and stuff like that. And the Warriors really needed a big man. They needed like a Bogan that could set screens. And he was just working so much hard for it. And I was just wondering what your thought about Steve Kerr should have played his zone, which would give him opportunity to rest a little bit, which would be long rebounds and trust the Lakers wouldn't make that many shots. The rebounds would come out loud. Their fast break would go, and they start getting the pace going. What's your thoughts about that? And thanks again for a great show this year.
Yeah, appreciate it. I think they could have played more zone. They did do it at times. And again, the big man thing we'll leave. I mean, that's something we always talk about. But just your thoughts on the zone quickly, and then we'll call it a year.
They did play some zone. They had some success with it. I think it's fair to wonder why they didn't do more. My guess would be that Lakers are so big that rebounding is a concern, and as we all know, it's tougher to rebound out of a zone.
All right, Whitey, great stuff, my man. I know I've said it a few times. It's
Thank
just
you,
been an
JD.
Absolute pleasure this last year and a half to be doing this show. I know we did this show a few years back in the 15 and 50 year as well. But it's just an absolute pleasure to work with a pro like you and to get to talk about this team in hoops all year. It's been outstanding. So I just thank you. And I hope we get a chance to do it again next year.
Thank you. Can't thank you enough, JD. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. So thank you. Thank you to all the great callers, Cam and Craig. Thanks, JD. You're the best, and I look forward to our next time on the air together.
Yeah, absolutely. Cam Williams, Craig Valentino, John Lucan, Mark Grandy, I think even did a show this year.
Right.
So yeah, we appreciate the help of everybody, and we'll talk to you next year. Warriors This Week, Fox Sports Radio is coming up next, right here on 95.7 The Game.
Did you know that most people wait 6 or 7 years before they buy a new TV? That's a lot of time in front of one TV. So why not get one of the best sets for the next 7 years, like one of the top-rated Samsung, LG, or Sony models? Too expensive? What if you could get up to $1,000 trade-in for your old set? Who would do a stupid deal like this? Right now, at Video Only, you can get big bucks for your old set as a trade-in and a hot price on the new models. Don't be sorry. Check out Video Only.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights,